Hello, my name is Julia, and I'm going to be giving you a overview walkthrough of the QuickBooks integration and how it would be available to work for you within your website. To start today, we're going to head under your admin menu under the Members tab and take a look in Membership Billing. The first thing I'd like to show you that will be a bit of a change in the system is how the individual member page is going to look for you. So if we look up a name here, we'll take a look at Sam Smith today. You can see most of the membership billing records should look as you're used to seeing it, but there are some new boxes appearing on the left-hand side of transactions now. They're a little color-coded box with QB appearing within them, and each color is going to give you a different status for these transactions. Yellow is going to mean that these are pending transactions for you, which means the next time that you sync with QuickBooks, these transactions are going to be waiting to go over for you. The green box is going to mean that this transaction has already been synced to QuickBooks for you. And then there's also an option for a red box to appear. That means that that transaction has been marked to stay here in the system for you rather than syncing to QuickBooks. That is going to allow the transaction to be viewed like normal within the system, have all your normal reporting, but it's not going to try to sync to QuickBooks anytime when you run your sync. So that's just going to be a quick change you'll notice when looking at your member billing records. And if we want to see all of our transactions currently pending, such as these two yellow ones, what we can do is head back out to our billing menu. Once you have the QuickBooks interface enabled, we're going to have this new QuickBooks interface tab appearing on the right-hand side. And if we click into that, we'll go and take a look at this link here labeled Sync Transactions with QuickBooks. When we take a look here, we're going to load any transactions currently waiting to go over to QuickBooks for us. Right now, we see those two transactions for Sam Smith that was appearing in yellow. We can also see Sam Smith has a QB customer of Sam Smith linked here, and we also see an item number. So what this is telling us is that Sam Smith is already linked to a customer over in QuickBooks, and the item number is letting us know we have a GL account assigned for this invoice. If we ever see an item number missing, that's just going to mean that we want to go and assign a GL account before we run our sync. If we ever forget to do so, that's all right. The sync is going to stop and let us know when it's sending things over and allow us the chance to go back and assign that and then continue our sync. Same thing with customer mapping. If Sam already had this customer set up in QuickBooks, but we had not linked to it yet, this sync would let us know that and have us go back and fix it, which we'll take a closer look at in just a little bit. We can also look at this mapping of Sam Smith to Sam Smith before we sync. If for any reason that wasn't who we wanted this transaction to map to, what we could do is just click on this QV customer of Sam Smith, and it's going to take us to this search page. So if we wanted to search for a customer other than the name Sam Smith, we'd be able to do so right in this box. And then all we'd have to do is click Submit. And then we can see here, since we searched that same name as Sam Smith, we do still have our click to link to this customer. And that's going to happen anytime you search in that box. If it finds a name that matches, then all you have to do is click to link to this customer, and it's going to line those records up. If for any reason it does not find a match, then it'll let you know that as well. And you'll want to just make sure you're linking or searching on the customer name on the QuickBooks side, as that's what that search is going to take a look at. So if the customer name differs in any way from what's in your website, you'll just want to search on that customer name. And that's just going to be for members who already have a customer set up. If this is a new member and they're not already in QuickBooks for you, you don't have to worry about doing any sort of linking. The first time you send a transaction over for that new member, it's going to look, make sure that name is not already in QuickBooks for you, and then it's going to create a new customer and link everything for that member going forward to that customer it created. So that should hopefully take out some work for you for new members going forward. And we'll take a look at a page where we can see all of our member to customer mappings in just a moment. But first, before we run our sync, we're going to take a look at those different areas that we'll be setting things up first, such as our GL accounts. So to do that, we're going to go back out to the billing menu. On the lower right-hand side here, we're going to see the tab labeled Data Export. And at the bottom, we're going to see Edit General Ledger Accounts, and we also see Edit Classes. So we'll take a look at Edit General Ledger Accounts first. Right now, we can see all of the ones currently set up in the system here. And then beneath each name, we can see a QB item, letting us know that these are mapped to an item in QuickBooks. That's going to be the main difference between GL accounts here in the MemberLeap system versus what is in your QuickBooks. We do not directly interact with your actual chart of accounts. So the GL accounts here in MemberLeap are actually going to map to items or to products and services over within QuickBooks for you. When you set up these items then within QuickBooks, you will have the ability to map those items to your chart of accounts. So you should be able to still have the flow that you would like, but we do just have to map to those items rather than directly to your accounts. To take a look at what this would look like, we'll click Add New GL Account here at the bottom. That button will always appear at the bottom for you. You do not have a limit on the number of accounts you can have, so that's always going to be an option. Anytime you add or edit an account, this is going to be the page you will see. The first field here, account number, is optional. If you're using account numbers within QuickBooks and you'd like to use them here on the MemberLeap side, you absolutely can. But again, it's not required. So if you don't use those or you don't feel the need for it here within MemberLeap, you do not have to fill that field out. The two fields you will want to focus on is going to be description. That is going to be the name of the account here in the MemberLeap system. So as you're assigning these to your different transaction types, this would be the name that you would see. And then QB item, this is going to show a list of all of your items currently created on the QuickBooks side. And this would be what you're linking the account here in MemberLeap to over on the QuickBooks side of things. So today we'll go ahead, we'll choose test item, and then we recommend making the description name either the same or similar as the actual item that you're mapping to. This way there's no confusion between the two systems. What you're assigning here in MemberLeap is going to be just about the same as what it's called over in QuickBooks, so it should allow you to easily know what's happening on the QuickBooks side based on what's assigned here in MemberLeap. And then all we would do here is click Submit to save. And if we scroll to the bottom, we'll see our new name test item, followed by the QB item that it's mapped to, also named test item. To the right, we have a change link, which would take us to that same page we just saw. And then we also always have the option to delete our GL accounts as well. Again, you can set up as many accounts as you need. You can also set them up as you go. So let's say you set up all the initial ones you need, but then down the line you need to create new ones for particular events or new member plans or anything like that. You can always do so at that time. There'll be no limit on when or how many of these you can create. If we head back out then to the billing menu, we will also see that we can create classes as well. So we'll go under data export again, and this time we'll choose edit classes. This page is going to look very similar to our general ledger accounts page. We are going to see two classes set up here with change and delete options. If we click to add a new class, we are going to see the class name field appear, and then we also have the option to hide this class from selection. So if you have a large number of classes that you use, but you only use some throughout parts of the year, this hide from selection would allow you to hide some of them from your list to shorten it, make it more convenient without having to actually delete them. And that just gives you flexibility to have a more decisive list as you're assigning throughout the system. Right now, our MemberLeap QuickBooks is not using classes, which is why we don't have a drop-down menu available. But if you are using classes in your QuickBooks, you would have that same drop-down like you do for the general ledger accounts. And then this will directly pull in your actual classes from the QuickBooks side. And then this page would function the same way as well. This first line would be the name of the class here in MemberLeap, and then just beneath it, if you map to classes over in QuickBooks, it would list the QB class that it's mapped to. Classes are able to be not used or you can use them and then have the ability to either require them or not require them. So you could have the ability to use classes, but you don't have to have them on every transaction. Or if you mark classes as required, the sync would let you know if you're ever missing a class and have you fix that before you can actually send any transactions over. So that is up to you and how you use classes in the system, if you use them at all. We're going to go ahead and jump back out to the billing menu. Once you have your GL accounts and classes set up, you will need to assign them throughout the system to your different transaction types. So then that way, when you're syncing with QuickBooks, all of your transactions in the system know where they need to go for you. One of those types that you would want to assign to would be your membership plans for membership dues. One way to do this would be to go to the member database, and then we'll take a look at the plans link on the upper left. If we click the edit pencil to the right of one of our plans, we're going to see 4 QuickBooks related fields here at the top. We have general ledger account and renewal dues GL account, and then we have class and renewal dues class. The first 2 fields for each of these, general ledger account and class, are going to be for new member invoices. So for any new membership as they register, this would be the GL account and the class that is assigned. And then renewal dues GL account and renewal dues class is going to be for any of our renewing members and their invoices in the system. You do not have to differentiate. You can see here both of our fields have the same things assigned to them. So if your new member dues and your renewal dues go to the same place in QuickBooks, you'll just want to make sure you assign to both of those fields, even if it is the same account. But then if you do differentiate between the 2 types, you have the ability to do so in the system. If you were using the one-time registration fee, there is also a GL account drop down here as well, where you could make that assignment. And then all you'd have to do to save that would be to scroll to the bottom of your page, click continue, and then that would save that assignment for that membership type. And then all invoices and payments within that membership type would have those GL accounts and classes assigned for you. And you would just want to make sure to do this for each of your member plans. The other common place that you will be needing to assign GL accounts would be for event registration. So on the admin menu, we'll go to events and then event registration. And we'll go ahead and click into this first event here. You can either click on the name of the event or on the change link to the right of the event, and it's going to take you to your edit screens for your event. We'll scroll down here and we'll look for the tab labeled Invoice, Discount, and Payment Options. And then at the very bottom of this tab, we are going to see a drop-down for a general ledger account. And we are able to choose from this account which GL account we'd like to have assigned for this event. If you are using classes, you would also see a class field here as well, and you'd be able to choose from your drop-down menu. This is going to be your default option for events. So if your events have all transactions falling within it, going to one general ledger account, then all you'd have to do is make an assignment here on this first page and then save and continue, and you would be all set. We do also offer alternative options if you like to break your events down further. So let's say you have different packages for your event, and each package should go to a different GL account within QuickBooks. We are able to turn on additional settings. So then that way, when you set up a new package, right on that screen for each individual package, you will see a drop-down menu to assign a GL account for that specific package. And we can actually do that for every fee within an event. So you can have either one overall GL account, which you'd assign just here on this first page, or we can turn on additional settings. So each individual fee you add to the event will include a drop-down box to assign its own GL account. So that'll be based on your needs. We can always turn those on down the line as well. So if you start with the overall setting and then have an event down the road where you'd like additional features enabled, we can always do so, and that is included with your QuickBooks integration. So those can be toggled on and off for you as needed. We'll go ahead and scroll back up to the top here and jump back out to our main menu. So that is the setup of GL accounts and classes in the system and how you're going to assign them to different transaction types. The other thing we took a look at on that sync page was our member to customer mapping. And if we want to look at all of our member to customer mapping, we'll head back into membership billing. And then under the QuickBooks interface tab, we are going to head to a link called member status. If we go to this page, what it's going to do is load any of our members that currently have a billing record with us. And you can see right now in our test system, most of them have a little link to the right that says none. That means they're not currently mapped to any customers over on the QuickBooks side. But then we can see other ones here have a little CUST customer and then a number to the right. So that's going to be their internal customer ID number from QuickBooks. And then beneath their name, we're going to see a QB customer name. So you can easily come to this page and see who is mapped to what member over in QuickBooks. And I would also give you an easy way. Let's say Anna Broadhead here, we knew they did have a customer record in QuickBooks, but they weren't linked for some reason. All we'd have to do is click this little link that says none. We're going to see a search page like we saw earlier, and then all we'd have to do is click submit to look and see. It looks like Anna does not have a QuickBooks customer record, so we would just leave Anna be, and the first time we sync a transaction for Anna over to QuickBooks, she should set up her own new customer for us. During your first integration call with us, we're going to do what's called a mass mapping. So if you do already have customers set up in QuickBooks, we're going to try and run that list of customer names against the list of member names in your system and link all of those up as much as possible to have that list of members mainly all linked up and ready to go to QuickBooks. Then you'll be able to come to this page, make sure those mappings do look right for you, and then if anyone wasn't mapped for any reason, such as the names differing between the two systems or duplicate names, anything like that, you'd be able to manually map those as needed. And then again, any new members that are not already in QuickBooks for you, or if you were starting fresh and you have no names in QuickBooks yet, you'd be able to leave those be, and those are going to set up their own new customers in QuickBooks when their first transactions go over. But that's going to be the member to customer mapping process, and this is going to be the page where you can always come and check those mappings out. If we head back out to the billing menu, the last thing I like to take a look at before we look at the actual sync again is going to be under QuickBooks interface again, but then we're going to see two links that look very similar. We have transaction status member billing, and then we have transaction status event registration. Both of these are going to look and work the same way. The only difference is one is only going to pull in membership billing transactions, such as member dues, and the other one is only going to pull in our event registration transactions. So right now I'm going to click into the member billing one, but again, these do work the same way as one another. The way this is going to work is it's going to pull in transactions based on the date range at the top, and this is going to be any invoice or payment within that date range. And we can see to the right, a majority of these right now have a little do not export link to the right of them. That means when we run our sync with QuickBooks, they are not going to try and go over for us. But we do have the ability to toggle these links. So if I were to click this do not export link, the page is going to reload, and instead it's going to say will be exported, which means the next time that we sync, this transaction would be able to go to QuickBooks for us. And then it works the same way in reverse. If we click on the will be exported link, it's going to toggle back to do not export. So that's just going to give you an easy way to control what does or does not go over to QuickBooks for you. Oftentimes we'll do this at the start of your integration, so that way if you have certain transactions already over in QuickBooks, we'll put in what's called a cutoff date, so then that way transactions prior to a certain date will be marked to do not export to stay here in the system for you, and then we'll start syncing new transactions after a particular date, so then that way we're not sending any duplicate transactions over to QuickBooks for you. And then after that point, any new transaction coming into the system is going to automatically be marked to will be exported and try and go over in your next sync. So you won't have to do too much manual work there. This page will mainly be for any particular transactions if you ever want to wait for some reason before syncing, or oftentimes I see it used if you're having trouble with the sync. Let's say one transaction's giving you an error. The way this sync's going to work is it's going to want you to correct that trouble transaction before you can continue syncing. Sometimes that's a super easy thing to do. The sync tries to explain to you what the problem is if it runs into one. So if you understand what it is and you can fix it, then you can just keep on going. But if, for example, you needed to send us a help ticket to help you with the problem and you don't want to wait to keep syncing until that is correct, corrected. That's another time I often see this page used. You could come here, you can mark your trouble transaction to do not export. That's going to take it off your sync list. It's going to make it so the sync no longer sees that as a problem, and then you're going to be able to keep syncing. And then once that error is corrected for you, you can come back, mark it back to will be exported, and then send it over normally. But that's one of the main uses I see this page for, but it's going to be up to you how you use this control. We're going to go back to the billing menu again, and this time we're going to go under QuickBooks Interface, and we're going to take another look at our Sync Transactions with QuickBooks page. Just to note, if you are using our QuickBooks Desktop integration, this page is instead going to be called Pending Transactions. It's going to work the same way as far as what it's showing you and how it's broken down, but the only difference is with our QuickBooks Desktop transaction, we run the sync with what's called a web connector, which we'll set up with you during your first call, whereas with our online connection, we're able to sync straight from the pending page. So for QuickBooks Online, this is called Sync Transactions with QuickBooks, but if you're using the desktop version, you're going to instead see Pending Transactions, but it's going to work very similarly for you. Once we take another look back at this page, again, we're going to see our 2 transactions waiting for Sam Smith to go over. He is mapped to a customer, and we do seem to have an item appearing. The way this page is going to break down is it's always going to appear in the same order for you. It's going to show member billing invoices first, followed by member billing payments. And then you can see here, if we had event registration invoices, they would show next, followed by event registration payments. If you were using the store portion of the system, those would be able to appear here as well. And again, they would appear in the same order of invoices first, followed by payments. The way the sync is going to work is it's always going to start with the first transaction at the top of the page and then just try and work its way down. Again, if it ever runs into trouble, it's going to stop and let you know. Normally, that's going to be in the form of a red message letting you know what the problem is. And again, the system does try and explain that to you, so it may be a simple fix that you're comfortable making, or you can let us know you're getting an error or send a screenshot of the message, and we'll get that figured out for you. You do have a couple options as far as how you send the transactions over. With our current setup right here, we're sending both invoices and payments, but you have the ability to also send what are called sales receipts, which is going to be just your payment going over to QuickBooks. So the sales receipt method is an option that you'd be able to use for the sync. You also have the ability to use invoices and payments, but only send invoices once they are paid. So that way, if you wanted to send both invoices and payments, but you didn't want to end up with a lot of unpaid invoices over in your QuickBooks, if you happen to have members that don't pay up for some reason, and you know that's a common thing, you can mark it so we're sending over both invoices and payments, but we're only sending those once the payment is received. Or you can send over invoices right as you get them and then payments whenever they come in. And also, again, there is the sales receipt method as well, which is going to send only payments. The only thing I would mention in regards to the sales receipt method is that does not allow for partial payments. So if you have a tendency for members, either for dues or events or anything like that, where they send in part of a payment at one time and another part later, let's say our $500 invoice, we instead of this one $500 payment had 2 payments for $250. If we were using our sales receipt method, we would get an error for that, as the sync does not allow for us to send to QuickBooks in those partial payments for the sales receipts. So in that case, we would need to mark those to do not export and then manually record those payments over in QuickBooks. So if you do see yourself receiving a noticeable number of partial payments, I would recommend using one of the invoice and payment options, whereas the sales receipt option may not be the best selection there, but all 3 of those options are available for you. The main difference then, if using the sales receipt method, would be you would not see the invoices appearing at the top of the screen. We would only be seeing payments showing up. We always recommend coming to this page prior to your sync and taking a good look at it first, just to make sure everything looks proper for you. Everything's going over that should be going over. Everything that is going over looks like it should be going over. And just taking a look to be sure before you click to sync. Then if you are doing the QuickBooks desktop version, you would open your web connector and choose to update status and sync your transactions. Again, we take a closer look at the web connector when we set that up with you. But then here for our online version of the sync, all we need to do is click to sync with QuickBooks at the bottom of the page. This status page will load as it goes to let us know what's going over. We can see we sent our invoice here as well as our payment. And then at the bottom, we have end sync operation. If it ever didn't say end sync operation, that would mean we ran into some sort of error. And again, it normally gives us a big red message to get our attention and let us know what that is. When your sync is running, you're going to want to leave this tab open. But you are able to do things in your other tabs. If you have a lot of transactions going over and it may take a while, feel free to work on other things while it's running. Once it has finished running, if we jump back out to our billing page, we'll take another look at our sync transaction with QuickBooks, and we should now see that this page is empty. We sent everything over, so now nothing is waiting to go. And then as new things come into the system, they should automatically show up on this page for us. And then if we want to keep track of what we did send over, we can go back to our billing menu and under QuickBooks Interface again, and we'll take a look at our sync date report. This is going to be a report that lets us pull in a certain date range to see transactions that were synced on that date. And then we can see I synced an invoice and payment for Sam Smith earlier today to test things out. And then we can see the invoice and payment that we just synced here and now. So that's going to give us an easy way to keep track of exactly when and what we synced with QuickBooks. So then that way, if we ever want to spot check over in QuickBooks, we have an easy list to compare with. And then this does also export to CSV. And then the member's name will always be a link, so we could click and take a look at this member's record if we wanted to take a closer look. We can see all of Sam's transactions now appear in green. And then this will also break down by membership billing and event registration, so you'll have a way to distinguish between those. And then the last thing we'll do is take a look over in QuickBooks. So now that we've synced, Sam Smith's transactions should now be appearing on his customer record. So if we go to our customers, we are going to go ahead and look up Smith and find Sam Smith. And then we can see that the invoices here for 2022 is what we sent over. So we can take a look at the invoice itself. We can see it had the product and service of member dues assigned, and then that's what it linked to. We can see the basic information that Sam had on their record was sent over as well. And we can also see it's marked as paid because our $500 payment that we also sent over automatically closed that invoice out for us. So that should just be a simple way to easily keep your QuickBooks up to date with your website. You'll be able to enter all transactions through your site going forward, and then use your sync to then update QuickBooks with that information. So that way you only need to enter them within one system, and then you'll be able to keep both systems up to date with one another. Again, this was just a brief overview that takes a look at the initial setup that will go into creating the integration and then how the sync is going to work for you. If you do decide to proceed with the integration, there will be 2 calls to set that up with you. One that's very similar to what we went through today, where we set up the whole back end of the system, and then a second call where we'll run your first sync with you, make sure everything works properly, make any needed changes, and just make sure you're in a good place to proceed. And then after that second call, you're normally all set to use your integration going forward. And then if you ever have any questions or concerns regarding QuickBooks or anything else in the system, you can, of course, always just send us a help ticket and we'll jump right on that and get things figured out for you. So I hope this video was helpful. And again, if you have any other questions or concerns, just let us know. Thank you so much and have a good day.